Today is Monday, August 13th. Almost 2 weeks into camp.
Almost.
Give us your thoughts so far. How are things going?
We had a scrimmage on Saturday. Saturday night, we had about 110 plays. Got a lot of young guys through. It's only practice 8, so I think we found some young DBs that can really play, which was a positive. You know, we got some really good work on both sides of the ball. I think I see progress in the young guys. We're a veteran team, which obviously allows us to go a little bit faster in 8 practices than we normally would. So we're a little bit further ahead than I thought, but we got to clean a lot of things up, a lot of procedural things that just weren't good. And it's expected first scrimmage.
It's been a few years of, you say practice 8, and we've been in camp almost for 2 weeks. Back in the day, well, when you were playing, I was a little bit younger than you. But in 2 weeks, we would have been at practice 25 by now, because we would have had 3, 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, 1 at night. What other things can you do with these guys during camp? What becomes more important? You know, the practices are extremely important. Walkthroughs, time together as a team, but what other things are you doing to fill their days?
Well, strength and conditioning, obviously, that's a big part of what we're doing right now. A lot of mobility work, try to keep that soft tissue injuries down. You know, I think in the past when you practice twice a day and even every other day 2 times, you lose a lot of that, you know, taking care of your body stuff, and you're just trying to get the practices in. I think that's been a plus for our players. You know, it's a long camp for everybody, so you got to do some things at night that are a little bit more interesting and bring in some experts on social media and stuff like that to talk to our team. But you know, and it's a lot of education right now. A lot of, you know, not just football education, but life as a college student, you know, that mental health, stuff like that, that really maybe took a back burner in the past has really come to the forefront with these 1 practice a day kind of camp.
Let's start on the offensive side of the ball. Only a couple of starters lost. A lot of experience, a lot of veterans coming back, of course, led by Jake now within his 3rd year as a full-time starter. I don't remember when he wasn't, you know, a mainstay on that side. Let's talk about offensive side of the ball and what you see so far.
Yeah, I think, you know, we're clicking a little bit earlier maybe than we have last couple of years. We're not 100% yet, but you know, with a veteran group, you're allowed to install a lot faster. You know, I think all of our offense is in right now. Just really little bits and pieces that are still left. You know, we got 2 minutes in, which we never had in before practice 10. So I think we're way ahead of where we've been in the past. You know, we still are working with guys like Joey Fields, who hadn't played football in a year, and you know, he's kind of working the kinks out and, you know, trying to get some young tight ends ready to play is not easy because it's the hardest position on the field. But I think overall as an offense, I like where we are. You know, I think our defense played better than us on Saturday night, which I think is good. It's good for our defense to see them play good. So we still got some work to do, but I think we're way ahead of the game right now.
I was at practice on Friday afternoon briefly, and Jake called out a play, and there was a freshman running back. I think they were just doing pass, and freshman running back who had this look on his face, like, what did he just say? And he turned around and he looked at Drew and said, what? And Drew said, you do this, and you go there, and you do that. And it was that opportunity to turn to a veteran running back like Drew John Guillaume and learn from him, because like you said, you're moving so fast offensively so far.
Yeah, it's a plus to have guys, you know, taking ownership of what we're doing, not just the coaches, but the players. They understand what we're doing. And, you know, when leadership can go sideways, I think it's always a great thing for a football program, and the players can kind of take ownership. And Drew and even Anise Walker and Danley, those guys have been around, and they can help those younger guys in the backfield. You lose Cam Nash, you know, but I think we got 3 really good running backs that can play. And then you add Aaron Dawson into the mix, who played a little bit last year, and you really got a pretty good backfield.
And you really have that at every position, where you have that veteran leader. You know, you have it at quarterback with Jake and Tanner and you know, and Edison to that point, and then you have you have it at wide receiver when you talk. Joey hasn't played in a year, but he's been there, and somebody like Malik Rush and that group, and that can go out and do that. And then how about offensive line? Derek, have to replace Derek up the middle, but return Brown and McNone and those guys. How are you feeling about the offensive line?
Good. I mean, Javon was out a couple practices. He's back now. Nothing serious, but he's back. Dave Cinti, who's been here for 5 years now, is taking over for Derek right now, and he's in a battle with Craig Wood, the center position. Feel good about both guys. I think both guys are great leaders. They're both great technicians. Dave maybe has a little leg up because he knows the offense a lot better. The other guys are really starting to play well now together. 5 guys that, 4 guys really that played together for 2 years now, and I think are really starting to show that they're veterans. They're working on other things, not just plays and stuff like that, learning plays. They know that stuff. They're working on techniques and just maybe taking it to that next level. And we got great leaders in that group. 4 guys who I think are really good leaders for our football team. Connor McNone, Javon Brown, Cole Phelps and Jake Shenna, all guys that are great leaders. They all do it the right way. They work out hard. They do well in the classroom. There's nothing I could say negative about those guys. And I think the biggest improvement has been in the backups. Whereas I think last year somebody went down, we would have really struggled. And I think those younger guys, that redshirt freshman group from last year, are becoming sophomores and really starting to develop into some key backups that can, maybe help us if someone goes down in the maybe game 2 or 3.
Let's move over to the other side of the ball. Some more starters to replace. And you mentioned before we started talking that some of the DBs have stepped up, and that's really, when you look at guys like Najee and Gerard and guys that we have to replace defensively. How is that going so far?
Yeah, I mean, like I said in NEC Media today, you can't just replace those guys. They're not only are they great football players, which helps, but great people, great leaders. Guys looked up to them. It's just, you can't replace them that way. So Tajik's back. He's doing a really good job of mentoring a lot of those young DBs. I think Kyle Baum, who played a lot last year but now is finally thrust into a starting role, I think he's finally starting to feel comfortable enough to lead, not just play well for himself. And I think that's always when you sort of take that next step. So I hope he's there. And then some of these young guys we got that came in, Dexter Lawson, Tremarie Charles, those guys have been, just flat out lights out in 8 practices, which is hard to believe for true freshmen learning our defense. But they're freshmen. They're going to make mistakes. There's going to be balls that go over their head. So, some of these guys like DJ Exelum and Grant Ibe and Kendall Coles, they got to step it up. They really got to start playing at a high level. And they're starting to. But, I think we really need to see a little bit more out of those guys.
How about linebackers? We lose Randall from last year, but Kenny Keene returns. And how about that group?
Yeah, you can't replace Randall. Randall was, he started every game, I think, of his, certainly his last 3 years, but I think most of his freshman year as well. It's just something about what he gave us in the middle that's just really hard to replace, and we're finding it a little bit more difficult. McKinney's a great playmaker. He's gonna do a great job for us, but to replace Randall is, it's gonna be really hard to do. I think the guys that have jumped out at me is Michon Hunt, who's really played very, very well, and then a couple of our younger guys that are starting to really come into their own. Eric Henry and Troy Vasilescu and Freddie Allen. Those guys are starting to really play what I would consider like veterans finally. So I think they're going to give us a little bit of maybe more of a linebacker by committee than it was in the past, where you looked up, you saw 4 and 9, and they never left the field. It may not be that way this year.
And defensive line led by Chris Tinkham in that group. Who stood out so far?
Well, Tink's a one-man wrecking crew. You're not going to get much done with that guy playing on a consistent basis. He's been really good. Landon Reeker's been really good. We're trying to find a replacement for Chad, who graduated, and I think the other guys are stepping up. James Dumas had a good scrimmage, and Brandon Purrett's super talented, and has really practiced well this year. So we just got to see how they do. I'm just not sure how the other guys are going to come along to form that first D line, but all of them will factor in to what we do on defense, and they're going to be really good.
Special teams. Frankie Palmer is no longer going to be kicking for us. So let's talk about punter, kicker, kickoffs, place kicking. Where do we go?
Francis Cole and Joe Zappi and Brandon Desautel are the three guys that will battle for those duties. I think Francis Cole right now is a dominant punter, so I think that's probably going to swing that way unless Brandon can come on in the next few weeks. I think kicking is a toss-up right now. I think both guys are doing a really good job, so that's a good problem to have. But we just got to figure out by the time we get to Ball State who's going to be the guy kicking off, who's going to be the guy kicking, and then handling full-time punting duties.
Outside of the playing field, we had something happen over the summer, and it's part of a program that you helped bring here, in the Be the Match program, where Mike Mushar, linebacker, was chosen to be a bone marrow donor for a young boy or girl. We're not sure who it is. We know it's a youngster, and he actually went through that process, went through all the screening, went through everything, and it was chosen and actually donated the bone marrow during the summer. I saw him working out with Coach Erickson the other day. So
yeah.
Is he back on the field? Is he almost back on the field? And talk about that program and what something like that means to you.
Well, Be the Match is, that's it's a bone marrow donor registry where they pick from that registry to see who can match with somebody who has some type of blood-borne disease, whether it be anemia or it's cancer or something along those lines. And what it is we got to increase the minority population in that registry, and there's no better way to do that through athletics. Obviously we probably have the most diverse population of any on campus, and it starts with our guys, and it starts with our guys recruiting people from on campus to come register. We do one drive a year. We've averaged about 220 a year. We'd like to try to get that a little higher on a campus like ours. It's certainly easy to do that. You just got to get the people there. And then Mike unselfishly gave his summer up to save someone's life. I mean, that's kind of what he did. And I think without our support, maybe wouldn't have done it. The coaching staff and the staff around the athletic department encouraged him, and we just let him know that regardless of whatever happens, you've done something really, really good for somebody else. And don't worry about the 2 weeks, that you're going to have to take off from camp, because he's a veteran anyway, and if you can't get it done in 2 weeks of camp, then he's probably not going to get it done anyway. So I think we've got Mike to a point right now where he's today is his first full practice contact-wise. He's always been practicing the whole time, just hasn't had any contact. So we're just so proud of him that he would give himself, up for, to help save somebody. And that's really what it's all about, and that's what these guys do it for.
As we head towards Ball State in that opener that Thursday night, so we'll play at Ball State. The following Friday night we'll play at home in our home opener. What do you do this week in camp, and then when do you actually start game week for Ball State? Because we're almost at 2 weeks. It's almost at the point where these kids are tired of practicing against each other. I don't know if it's quite reached that point yet because they've only gone 8 times, but we know that week in between game week and the end of camp, sometimes that happens, and whether it gets chippy or whether people start hating each other. Or,
it's gotten chippy already. It's gotten real chippy last week. But I think when you get to that, what I say, that point of, it's not perfection because there's no such thing, but when you've almost reached that point where you've executed everything pretty well throughout camp, then I think it's time to start switching the gears to prepare for Ball State, and we're not there yet. So we're going to give it this week and see how this week progresses through the scrimmage on Saturday, and then the following week is really fine-tuning the depth chart, and then the middle of that week we start getting into really heavy into Ball State.
All right, Coach, we appreciate your time.
Yeah, it's great.
We'll check in with you a couple more times during camp. But good luck to you. We hope everybody stays healthy. We hope everything goes well. We hope the rain stops and the lightning stops.
Yeah, the weirdest weather year we've had so far.
It feels like we're in Florida because every day about 4 or 5 o'clock the clouds just roll in, and then when you're trying to practice or trying to get something done, it rains. like a monsoon for 2 hours, and then you can't do anything after that.
Well, we're trying to we're trying to follow the recommendations of our training staff and practice out of the sun a little bit, practice at night, 7 to 9, and although it sounds good, it's not so good when the lightning bolts start flashing. But it's better for our players to do that. Gets them out of the heat a couple of days a week, and they're able to get a little bit more done. And the training staff appreciates it because we haven't had any heat-related illnesses.
All right, and it gets us ready for our first 2 night games when the season starts out.
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
All right, Coach, thank you for your time. We'll check in and talk to you soon.
Look forward to it.